The wind cuts across the Texas plains like a blade, carrying the scent of diesel, dust, and something darker: ambition. Tommy Norris stands at the edge of a freshly drilled rig, the late afternoon sun glinting off the metal, shadows stretching long across the barren ground. He's no longer just fighting for MTech oil, he's fighting for the very definition of power, family, and legacy. Every decision now carries consequences that could crumble everything he's built, or destroy him entirely. And in this game, the line between loyalty and betrayal is as thin and fragile as the horizon. Tommy Norris leans against the railing of his new corporate headquarters, high above the dusty streets of West Texas. It's quiet here, almost too quiet, but he can feel the pulse of the oil empire he's building beneath his feet. MTech Oil has grown since he walked away from Cammy and the old boardroom fights. More ambitious, more ruthless, and now dangerously exposed. He lights a cigarette and watches the city, knowing the horizon hides both opportunity and threat. The morning headlines flash across his phone, highlighting the offshore rig news. A strike there could shift power in a single blow, and the thought alone tightens his jaw. In West Texas, nothing is static. Money, land, influence, they move like oil under the surface, slick and unpredictable. Tommy knows that every handshake carries hidden agendas, every contract has claws, and every smile could be masking a knife. He doesn't need reminders, but the shadow of Cammy Miller is never far. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, haunt his decisions like a storm warning. She's not an enemy in the traditional sense. She's something more dangerous. A reflection of what he could have been if he'd chosen ambition over conscience. Walking away from MTech Oil didn't make her powerless. It only sharpened her focus. Every strategic move she makes now feels like it's aimed straight at him. And for Tommy, that's more than business. It's personal. He exhales smoke, watching it spiral toward the low-hanging clouds, thinking about loyalty, morality, and the price of independence. The room behind him is quiet, except for the hum of air conditioning and the occasional murmur of an assistant bringing updates. Tommy's phone vibrates. It's Cooper. His son's voice is tense, a mixture of excitement and anxiety that Tommy recognizes immediately. Cooper's been handling new acquisitions, risks, contracts, leases, like a man 10 years older, but the weight of responsibility hasn't yet bent him. That's good. That's exactly what Tommy wants. But the edge in Cooper's voice signals something new, something dangerous. Tommy's gut tightens. "What is it?" he asks, keeping his tone calm. Cooper doesn't answer immediately, letting silence fill the space between father and son. And in that silence, Tommy already feels the tension growing. West Texas isn't forgiving. The oil business isn't forgiving. And in a world where fortunes rise and fall on a single decision, hesitation can be fatal. Tommy knows this better than anyone. He's built a career on understanding leverage, the kind of leverage that turns deals into power, power into loyalty, and loyalty into survival. But he also knows that survival in this game requires more than brains and courage. It requires a careful calculation of hearts, ambitions, and hidden motives. Every person around him, whether ally, family, or competitor, is a piece on a chessboard that could tip the scales in his favor or destroy everything. As he listens to Cooper explain the latest opportunity, a newly discovered oil field off the Gulf Coast, the tension in Tommy tightens like a wire ready to snap. Offshore rigs are a different beast. Distant, volatile, and controlled by forces he can't entirely see or predict. Galino's presence, always lurking, always patient, adds another layer of danger. Tommy doesn't trust him. Not now, not ever. Galino has influence that stretches beyond borders, beyond companies, beyond the oil patch itself. A single misstep in this game could set Galino against him, and that's a threat he can't afford to underestimate. Tommy's mind drifts briefly to his father, T.L. Norris. The old man's shadow looms large in his memory, a constant reminder that the old ways are fading, that restraint and wisdom must sometimes bend in the face of modern ambition. T.L. taught him the value of patience, the importance of timing, the weight of legacy. But the world has changed. And Tommy? He's caught between worlds, between the past that shaped him and a future that refuses to wait. In the office, Cooper's urgency finally breaks through. "Dad, if we don't move fast, Cammy's going to take the lead. The rig, the leases, it'll all be hers before we even get a foot in the door. Tommy's hand tightens around his cigarette. That's the thing about ambition. It doesn't wait for conscience, and it doesn't negotiate with loyalty. It only rewards those willing to risk everything. He looks down at the map sprawled across the table, plotting the Gulf Coast acquisitions. Red ink marks the high-stake areas, blue notes indicate legal leverage, and yellow highlights trace potential conflicts. Each symbol represents risk, reward, and moral compromise. Tommy isn't afraid of risk, but he is acutely aware of the consequences. One wrong move, one underestimated adversary, and years of blood, sweat, and strategy could vanish in the flash of a headline. The weight of leadership presses against him. Tommy doesn't just carry MTech oil on his shoulders, he carries his family, his father's legacy, and the fragile hope that he can navigate this world without losing the people he loves, or himself. And for the first time in years, he feels the gnawing sense that he might be underestimating the magnitude of what's coming. The wind outside grows sharper, rattling the windows, carrying the distant hum of machinery, the faint smell of crude and the sound of ambition hardening into inevitability. Tommy crushes his cigarette in the ashtray, stands straight, and makes a decision. The next move won't be cautious. It won't be safe. It will define him, his family, and the empire he's determined to control. Somewhere out there, Cammy is calculating too. Galeno is watching. And Cooper, he's about to learn that the line between legacy and destruction is thinner than anyone ever admitted. In the silence, the rig in the distance seems to gleam with possibility and peril. And Tommy Norris, landman, strategist, father, and survivor, knows that in a world where oil is power and power is everything, the next move is always the most dangerous. Episode 1. Keeping the suspense, power dynamics, and cinematic tension alive. This section will deepen character conflicts, build stakes around MTech Oil's expansion, and introduce the subtle but looming threats from Cammy and Galeno. Tommy steps out onto the balcony, letting the West Texas wind whip across his face. The sun is dipping low, turning the horizon into a blaze of orange and gold, but the beauty of the landscape does nothing to calm the storm inside him. The stakes have changed. MTech Oil is no longer just a company, it's a statement. Every contract, every lease, every barrel of oil extracted carries the weight of strategy, ego, and survival. And in this world, the rules are never written in ink, they're etched into the decisions you make in the dead of night, under pressure with consequences that echo for years. Tommy's phone buzzes again. Cooper. The son's voice is steadier now, but there's no mistaking the tension underlining each word. He's learning fast, faster than Tommy anticipated. But that rapid ascent carries a cost. One miscalculated risk, one overlooked player, and the empire they're trying to build could crumble before it even takes shape. Inside the office, the hum of computers and quiet murmur of assistants creates a strange calm, a lull before the storm. Tommy's eyes scan the digital maps of the Gulf Coast acquisitions, the dotted lines, color-coded notes, and highlighted territories forming a complex web. This is more than geography. It's a battlefield. Every parcel represents opportunity, danger, and a negotiation that could end in victory or ruin. He thinks about Cammy, her meticulous planning, the sharpness behind every decision she makes. She isn't out for revenge. Not exactly. But she understands leverage in a way Tommy can respect and fear at the same time. She's a strategist who measures every move with cold precision, and the realization that she's one step ahead of him in certain areas sharpens Tommy's focus rather than dulling it. He respects her mind, but he won't let respect slow him down. Not now. Galeno is a different kind of threat entirely. He doesn't negotiate with morality, loyalty, or emotion. His power is quiet, but absolute. A simple conversation with him can feel friendly, casual even. But underneath, it's always a trap. A reminder that Tommy owes debts he didn't fully understand. Now, with Cooper entering the game, the stakes are compounded. Galeno sees potential in Tommy's son, a leverage point that could topple MTech Oil or bend it to his will. Tommy clenches his fists at the thought. The idea of someone using his own blood as currency ignites a primal protective instinct. But he knows anger alone won't secure his empire. Strategy will, planning, anticipation. Every move must be calculated, every ally aligned, every adversary understood. Failure is not an option. The Gulf Coast rig represents the next big gamble, a high-risk, high-reward endeavor. Tommy knows that if MTech strikes oil there, it could cement their dominance, but only if every detail falls into place. Offshore operations are unpredictable, from regulatory red tape to environmental hazards, to rival companies sniffing around for weakness. The margin for error is microscopic. One mistake, one oversight, and the consequences could ripple through the entire industry. Cooper's excitement about the rig is contagious, but Tommy senses the undercurrent of fear. His son is sharp, competent, and hungry, but also untested in the face of global-scale corporate danger. Tommy has to guide him without showing his own cracks. Meanwhile, the tension with Cammy simmers quietly but relentlessly. She's already made moves that have disrupted MTech's traditional power structure. Her acquisition strategies, combined with her understanding of corporate law and resource management, have positioned her as an unstoppable force. Every plan Tommy devises must consider her counter moves. Their conflict isn't just business, it's a war of ideology, a battle over control, vision, and legacy. Cammy represents the past Tommy left behind, the life he walked away from, and the consequences of doing so. She doesn't hate him exactly, but she knows the fragility of his position, and she's willing to exploit it. The anticipation of confrontation with her creates a tension that is almost physical, a charge in the air that makes every interaction feel loaded, every negotiation potentially deadly. Tommy paces through the office, thinking about TL, Cooper, and the generations of his family. TL's wisdom, steeped in decades of experience, clashes with Tommy's own approach. Modern, bold, and risky. Cooper represents the future. Ambition unbound, willing to challenge both father and grandfather, willing to take risks that Tommy might consider reckless. That generational tension is a constant pressure, one that shapes every choice he makes. He knows that the world doesn't wait for caution, and that the rules of survival have changed. But he also knows that in moving forward, he must honor the legacy he inherited, or risk losing it entirely. The quiet in the room is broken by the sharp ding of incoming emails, messages marked urgent, contracts pending approval, and alerts about competitors' movements. Each notification is a reminder that the empire he's building is alive, volatile, and under constant threat. Tommy reviews the latest acquisition notes, focusing on the leases that could give MTech dominance over the Gulf Coast drilling rights. The negotiations are delicate, requiring legal precision, shrewd diplomacy, and the ability to anticipate deception. Every handshake is layered with meaning, every signature potentially fatal. The pressure is relentless, but Tommy thrives under it. Yet, even as he strategizes, the personal stakes loom large. Family dinners are no longer simple gatherings. They are tactical exercises in loyalty and patience. Conversations with Cooper are tests of judgment and morality. Each encounter with TL challenges his understanding of heritage and obligation. And every thought of Cammy and what she could do next serves as a reminder that ambition and betrayal often wear the same face. In West Texas, survival is not just about money or land, it's about understanding people, reading intentions, and staying 3 steps ahead at all times. As the sun sets completely, casting long shadows across the office floor, Tommy takes a moment to breathe. The Gulf Coast, Galeno, Cammy, Cooper, they are all pieces on a board that is far larger and far more dangerous than it seemed months ago. The stakes have never been higher, and Tommy knows that this is just the beginning. Season 3 will test everything he believes about power, loyalty, and family. Every move now matters, every alliance can shift, and every betrayal will be remembered. The wind outside howls like a warning, and Tommy Norris, the landman who has seen too much to be naive but cares too much to walk away, knows that the battle for MTech Oil and his family has only just begun. The Gulf Coast rig looms in the distance like a steel sentinel, cutting through the gray-blue horizon. Waves crash against its supports, relentless, indifferent, the sea showing no loyalty to anyone. Tommy Norris stands on the deck of the supply vessel approaching it, jacket flapping in the wind, scanning the horizon for anything out of place. Offshore operations are a different kind of battlefield. Isolation amplifies every decision, and mistakes are magnified by miles of water, steel, and cold currents. One misstep here isn't just a lost lease. It could cost lives, money, and reputation. And in Tommy's world, reputation is power. His phone buzzes. Cooper's voice comes through, calm but tight. "Dad, Galino's men are here. Offshore contractors. They're asking questions that weren't on the list. It doesn't feel right." Tommy's jaw tightens. He doesn't need to be told twice. Galino never asks. He asserts. He manipulates. He insinuates. And he waits. Always waits. Tommy remembers every past encounter, the casual tone-masking threat, the smiles hiding knives, the deals made with words that carry invisible chains. He exhales, scanning the rig workers, the supply barges, and the offshore horizon, searching for a hint of what's about to unfold. Inside the rig's control room, the hum of machinery is deafening. Pipes hiss, monitors flicker, and alarms are primed for mistakes. Tommy walks the narrow corridors, each step echoing against metal walls. He sees Cooper speaking to engineers, gestures sharp, voice firm but measured. His son has grown into his role faster than Tommy imagined, but the tension in Cooper's posture tells him one thing. Offshore politics are as brutal as corporate offices, and Galino's influence has already begun to creep in. Tommy observes, weighing every glance, every nod, every hesitation. This isn't just oil exploration, it's chess played on a platform suspended over unforgiving water. Meanwhile, back on shore, Cammy Miller watches the news feeds, her expression calm, unreadable. She's tracking Tommy's every move, every acquisition, every small shift in control, and she knows the stakes better than anyone. If the Gulf Coast rig succeeds, MTech Oil's influence expands, and Tommy's new empire becomes more than a challenge. It becomes a threat. Cammy doesn't hesitate. She calculates, mobilizes resources, and positions allies with the precision of a general preparing for a siege. In her mind, every action Tommy takes is predictable because ambition always leaves traces, patterns she can exploit. And she will. Galino's presence, however, overshadows even Cammy's strategic brilliance. He doesn't act like a traditional rival. He's the shadow that always follows, the unseen hand twisting events from afar. On the rig, his representatives approach Cooper, subtle but menacing, questions layered with expectation and threat. Cooper's eyes flick to Tommy, silently asking for guidance. Tommy knows there's no room for hesitation. He steps forward, voice calm but cold. "Galino doesn't give favors," he says. "He trades debts you owe, and debts aren't optional." The words hang in the air like steel. Cooperation here isn't about politeness, it's about survival. The rig itself becomes a character in this unfolding drama. Isolated, exposed, and unforgiving. A sudden gust of wind sends equipment rattling, a warning that nature does not yield to human ambition. Tommy walks the platform, mentally mapping vulnerabilities, potential hazards, escape routes, and the cracks in operational security. Every detail matters. One overlooked weakness could allow Galino or even Cammy to exploit them, turning months of planning into chaos. As night falls, the rig is illuminated by harsh floodlights. Tommy stands at the edge, looking out at the endless water, the offshore horizon dark and unyielding. His thoughts drift to family. TL, Cooper, the legacy of MTech Oil. Every move offshore carries echoes back home. A misstep could bring personal tragedy alongside corporate disaster. Cooper's growth is promising, but Galino sees potential leverage in him, and Tommy feels the tightening knot in his chest. Protecting his son has become inseparable from protecting his empire. The offshore work becomes a delicate dance of power, control, and intimidation. Cooper negotiates contracts, monitors drilling schedules, and keeps a vigilant eye on Galino's men. Tommy guides him, teaching lessons in leverage, patience, and survival without revealing fear. In these moments, father and son are allies, strategists, and guardians simultaneously. Yet, there is a tension simmering, the unspoken understanding that a single miscalculation could unravel both of their futures. Back on shore, Cammy moves pieces with ruthless efficiency. She knows the rig will either succeed or fail, and she's prepared to capitalize on either outcome. Her phone buzzes, an associate confirming a rival company is sniffing the edges of Tommy's leases. Her expression remains calm, but inside, every nerve is alert. Control, she reminds herself, is everything. And Tommy's growing independence has just made the game infinitely more interesting. Galeno, patient as ever, watches from his vantage point. He sees Tommy asserting authority over Cooper, over the rig, over MTech Oil's expansion, and he smiles. Barely perceptible. The game isn't about confrontation yet. It's about positioning, waiting, watching. Every move Tommy makes, every decision Cooper executes, every strategy Cammy implements feeds into Galeno's ultimate advantage. Power, debts, influence, he measures them all, knowing the moment to strike is coming. And when it does, it won't be violent. It will be inevitable. As night deepens, the rig hums with life, offshore winds whipping waves into frenzy, the lights cutting stark lines through darkness. Tommy stands alone at the edge again, a solitary figure against a vast, unyielding sea. His mind spins through contingencies, risks, and moral compromises. The Gulf Coast rig represents opportunity, but it is also a gauntlet, a test of skill, courage, and foresight. Failure isn't an option. Success isn't guaranteed. And somewhere, in the shadows of power, Cammy and Galeno are already calculating the consequences of every choice he makes,